没有，先一个人，先我。好，线上的观众朋友，大家好，欢迎来到。
Good afternoon. Welcome to today's conference, COP29 Enhancing Ambition and Enabling Action. The session is the high-tech industry at the forefront of achieving net zero. I'm Lin Kan-Yan. So this is our first session online. I heard that over 400 people have signed up. And on different platforms, we are live streaming our event. So for those of you on WebEx and also on YouTube, good afternoon. Those of you on WebEx, if you would like to listen to Chinese, because later we're going to have English speakers, so you can click on the Earth icon to listen to the interpretation. So why we're talking about the high-tech industry at the forefront of achieving net zero, because we understand that COP meeting has a green action declaration. Over 100 government and agencies have adopted this declaration. And what are they talking about? Actually, we understand that by using technology, we can accelerate the goal of achieving the climate goal of 2030, because we understand that when it comes to climate monitoring and disaster alert, we do see the positive effects. But actually, in some lowly developed countries or underdeveloped countries, their digital capability is still lagging behind. So how can we close the gap of digital discrepancy is a big issue. So whether they're using the latest AI or digital technologies, they can optimize our energy efficiency, but we also know that they will also consume more energy and water. So that's why here today we are talking about this important issue. Before we introduce our four speakers, we would like to welcome Luis Neves from Jesse. He is the CEO of Global Enabling Sustainability Initiative. So from 2008 to 2017, he was the chairperson of GESI. Under his leadership, GESI has become a very important leading organization in global sustainability initiative. And the second speaker is Veronica Teen. She is head of Delivery Europe Carbon Trust. She has great experience in the ICT field. When it comes to the calculation of carbon emission and methodology, she has a wealth of experience. So we look forward to listening to Veronica as to how to advance these efforts. Our third speaker is Vice President of Global Sustainability Program, Semi Masui Bhat. So she's the vice president for a global sustainability program. She has a wealth of experience in semiconductor, in a foundry, in packaging and testing. She has been promoting the improvement of resilience for the semiconductor supply chain. Actually, when COP27 was held in Egypt, SEMI has very close cooperation for the Semiconductor Climate Alliance for the upstream and downstream suppliers. And the last speaker is Mr. Peter Chan, Director of Corporate Sustainability Development Center of Light On Technology. I've talked to Mr. Chen before he started his career with design, and he has played a very important role for promoting low carbon and sustainable products for Light On. So these are our four speakers. Before we move on to the first presentation, now I would like to invite our four speakers to turn on a camera so that we can have a photo call together. So please turn on your camera. Thank you.
Okay, so the first photo we thumbs up is okay. Everyone thumbs up. Can you see our, yeah. Okay, 1, 2. Okay, thumbs up, 1, 2, 3. Okay, cool, thank you.
So in the first presentation, I would like to give the floor to CEO of GESI, Luis Neves. Over to you, please.
Luis.
Well, thank you so much, Alan. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for the invitation to be here today to this conference connected with COP29. I think you already mentioned my name. My name is Luis Neves. I'm the CEO of GESI. And I would like to say a few words about GESI, of course, what we do. And then I will drive you through my presentation. So we are an industry association that brings together this number of members. We represent around $4 trillion of market capitalization. Our membership cuts across the entire globe, different companies, different sectors as well. And we are very proud also to have TCP, the Taiwan Climate Partnership, as one of our members or recent members. So we have been working with many different stakeholders, as you can see, with the universities, with the UN organizations, with other business associations. And with them, we drive the sustainability agenda in connection with technology. So our main work is really to promote the role of the digital technologies for sustainability. And we are deeply convinced that digital technologies will be fundamental to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN. And that digital technologies will be also fundamental, of course, in that connection to respond to climate change. So altogether, we are over 200 organizations. We work, all of us, in the direction of promoting digital for good. So we have a clear strategy and we have a clear objective. We want to be leading the movement that defines, demonstrates, and takes action on the enabling role of digital solutions in sustainability. So our work focused very much on how digital solutions really can help the different vertical industries, different sectors, really to achieve their climate goals. As any other organization, we have a vision, we have values, and we also have a value proposition. Our vision is to create digital innovation in a responsible manner to transform our world for good. The values that support our vision are listed here. So we are a purpose-driven organization. Everything that we do is connected with digital technologies. We are a collaborative institution. We want everything that we do to be accountable and evidence-based. And as I mentioned to you, our value proposition is really to promote sustainability, to address the most pressing challenges that we are facing in the planet. With this slide, I give you an idea of what GSE has been doing so far. So we were created in 2004 at United Nations Environmental Programme. And at that time, it was exactly the time when the 8 UN Millennium Development Goals were launched. Those goals last up to 2015. In 2015, we all know that the United Nations decided to approve the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals. And so GSE has been working across this time, focusing on different areas of activity. In 2004, when we were created, we were very much a compliance-driven organization. So our primary focus was on ensuring compliance by addressing key sustainability challenges in supply chain. We worked a lot on human rights, conflict minerals, helping companies to meet regulatory and ethical standards. And in that connection, we developed different products like the Digital Access Index, eTask. eTask is a tool to measure supply chain performance. We developed the very first materiality assessment in the world for an industry. We developed a methodology on the Task Force on Climate Finance Disclosure, and we developed also a scenario analysis toolkit for our members. And so these first years, from 2004 up to 2007, were really focused on our internal challenges, so challenges of the company, and GSE helped its members really to respond to compliance-driven challenges. Starting in 2008, we moved into what I call the thought leadership agenda, and this has been our focus since then. So since that time up to today, GSE has been really driving a thought leadership agenda with a priority focus in this area, emphasizing the enabling role of digital solutions in addressing economic, environmental, and social challenges through the power of technology. And in that connection, we have been publishing many different reports, some of them also with the collaboration of the Carbon Trust. We have here today Veronica with us, but we developed the very first SMART report explaining the potential role of digital technologies to address climate change. We have done that report 4 times in 2008, 2012, 2015, and more recently in 2019. In relation to that, we have been really supporting our members in promoting the role of digital technologies for sustainable development. More recently, we have been working in other reports, which I will explain later. And in 2022, we worked together with the Carbon Trust and with other companies in Europe in the context of the European Green Digital Coalition to develop a methodology, a comprehensive methodology to measure the net positive impact of digital technologies. So this has been our journey since we started. And I give you a snapshot of our reports that I mentioned before. As you can see, our report, Smart 2020 from 2007, came to the conclusion that digital technologies could reduce 5.5 times more emissions than its own footprint and generate a business value of around $1 trillion in cost savings. We've done the same report in 2012. Here the delta is from 1 to 7.2, and as you can see, the business value almost doubled. And in 2015, we did the SMART 2030 report, where the conclusion was that digital technologies could reduce 20% of the global emissions by 2030, so a factor of 10, and the business value connected to this was equivalent or is equivalent to the GDP of China. We continue to do this type of reports up to 2019, where we have done our digital purpose report that is on the top of this slide. So a strong history in promoting the role and relevance of digital technologies for climate. And that's why GSE has been at different COPs, promoting digital technologies. I was in Baku this year. Again, in Baku, we have organized 11 different sessions with different stakeholders. We met the Green Climate Fund, the Adaptation Fund, the UNEP Finance. So we are connecting more and more our work with the finance institutions. We had meetings with UNFCCC, with the adaptation and the mitigation departments, and we brought our members to join us explaining the role of digital technologies for climate change. As I mentioned before, we have been publishing guidance and reports to support our members' work. These are two of our recent reports, one on Scope 3 guidance for telecommunication operators that we have done together with the ITU and GSMA. And we also published just 2 months ago a carbon accounting paper for ICT. This paper is very much focused on data centers. Just last week, we published a new white paper exploring 3 enabling digital infrastructure use cases in the future. This report, the role of
好，那因为线上的
because of the technical challenge, we're trying to reconnect Luis. I think he's on his way back.
Yes, we can hear you. Yeah, please continue. We just lost you 5 seconds.
Oh.
Hey, please continue. Yes, we can hear you.
So we set on a new strategic focus, whereby we really continue to work in promoting the role of digital technologies. But now we are engaging other industry sectors to work with you. As you can see here, we are closely working now with energy, utilities, transportation, connected living, but still focusing our work with current members that we have in the areas of telecommunications and software and electronics. And we are enlarging our activities as well in connecting with policy influencers. We have a huge portfolio that is part of our work, covering AI, circularity. I already mentioned the European Green Digital Coalition. We have a project with United Nations, the UN Global Innovation Hub, and we just started recently an initiative on water digitalization to bring together our member in the water sector with the digital. So our portfolio cuts across 3 areas, programs, platforms, and partnerships. In the partnerships area, The most relevant ones are the European Green Digital Coalition and the Global Innovation Hub, as well a project that we have on smart cities. So I think I will stop here. We have other speakers as well, but let me finish with something that we started in September in New York, when the UN General Secretary launched the report on AI for Humanity. We are in connection with that. We are launching AI with Purpose Lab to harness artificial intelligence to advance sustainable development. So this lab has three primary objectives: to explore, define, and implement global governance practices and ethical guidelines for artificial intelligence that protect and respect humanity and individual rights, lead the sustainability agenda and climate solution applications for digital infrastructure modernization in a future of AI, and ensure participation in AI among less developed countries through education, skills, training, and inclusive programs. So we will be working together with the UN Advisory Board, and we will be supporting its recommendations moving forward. So with this, I conclude my presentation, and I will stay here for any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.
好，我们再次谢谢。
Thank you very much for Louis' wonderful presentation. He touched upon a lot of issues. For example, in recent years, we have been talking about the transformation of digital and zero emission. And through years of research and evidence, Louis has proved that these efforts can reduce carbon emission and facilitate sustainability. And next, we would like to have Veronica to talk to us about how to calculate carbon emission.
Thank you, and I hope you can hear me, and thank you for having me be part of this event today to talk about and discuss how the high-tech industry can be at the forefront of achieving net zero. My name is Veronica Thieme, and I'm an associate director at the Carbon Trust, and I wanted to present today on the work that we've been doing with and for the European Green Digital Coalition that Louis already mentioned just now as well, which aims to assess the impact that digital technologies can have on reducing the emissions of other sectors. But before I go into the outcomes of our work, just a quick introduction to the European Green Digital Coalition on the next slide. This coalition was officially launched in 2021 by 26 CEOs of ICT companies. Moving to the next slide, who signed a declaration to support the green and digital transformation of the EU. The main aim of the coalition was and is to maximize the sustainability benefits of digitalization within the ICT sector, while supporting sustainability goals of other key sectors, such as, for example, energy, transport, agriculture, and construction. Since the launch of the coalition, several new members have joined and signed the declaration, so that now the coalition includes, I believe, around 37 member companies, and there are also 14 supporting partners. Moving to the next slide, in relation to its main aim, each member has signed a declaration to do three things. Firstly, to invest in the development and deployment of green digital solutions. And to support this, the project is developed a set of KPIs to measure and track this. Next, the coalition aims to develop methods and tools, sorry, just going back one slide still, to measure the net impact of digital technologies on the environment and climate, and then finally to support the co-creation with representatives of other sectors as well, and develop recommendations and guidelines for a green digital transformation of these sectors that benefits the environment, society, and also the economy. In addition, each member also committed to net zero by 2040, and with also an ambitious trajectory to reduce their own footprint by 2030. And this is because while the coalition is very much focused on the impact of the sector on other sectors, it also wants to ensure that each member is addressing their own emissions first before focusing on its potential impact it can have on other sectors. So moving to the next slide, I guess upon request from the European Parliament, the European Commission then funded the EGDC European Parliament pilot project, which aimed to support the coalition's work. And this project was previously run by Jesse, together with Digital SME, Digital Europe, Etno, GSMA, and also supported by us, the Carbon Trust, Deloitte, and ICT Sustainability Consulting. These organizations sort of formed together the secretariat of the EGDC, but also supported the coalition with the development of activities that were all completed in March 2024, and which I will talk more about shortly as well. But before I do this, moving to the next slide, just a quick introduction to the Carbon Trust. So the Carbon Trust is a mission-driven organization with the aim to accelerate the move to a decarbonized future. So on the next slide, you'll see that we work with governments, public sector bodies and companies to support them with navigating their organization towards a net zero future. We do this in a number of ways, including helping organizations with their carbon footprint measurements of their organizations and products, developing science-based reduction targets, assessing climate-related risks and opportunities, as well as helping them developing their transition plans. We also support market transformation through a number of different channels, such as, for example, the Offshore Wind Accelerator, which brings together offshore wind developers to address and solve some of the key challenges of that sector. We work across a variety of different sectors, but we do have a very extensive experience working with companies across the ICT sector on a global level. So that includes working with network operators, device and component manufacturers, as well as software providers, supporting them on a number of different projects. We've also worked with several ICT companies in particular around developing methodologies on net environmental impact calculations, as well as doing a lot of methodology work around this topic as well, including the support we provided to the European Green Digital Coalition. But moving on to the next slide and coming back to the outputs of the EGDC pilot project, if we go one slide further, the project developed 4 key deliverables that all supported the aims of the coalition, and these are all, by the way, available on the EGDC website. The most important one, which is sort of at the core of everything, is the net carbon impact methodology. This methodology aims to provide a guideline and the requirements for how to assess the net climate impact of digital solutions. It builds on existing net carbon impact methodologies like the Avoided Emissions Framework and ITU standards. This methodology was built sort of in parallel to the development of several case studies, which then aim to demonstrate the use of the methodology in practice by calculating the net carbon impact of selected solutions that were provided by the EGDC members and also supporting partners of the coalition. These case studies also helped to refine the methodology by acting as a sort of testing ground and helping to better understand the challenges that companies face when doing these types of calculations. In addition, the methodology and the case studies, the project also developed a set of what is called deployment guidelines, which provide guidance on how to maximize the positive net impact of the solutions and trying to minimize some of the negative impacts. Both the case studies and the deployment guidelines were developed considering solutions across sort of 6 key sectors that were identified as focus areas, including construction buildings, agriculture, transport, manufacturing, smart cities, and energy and power. Finally, we also developed a set of KPIs that companies can use to assess and report the extent of their investments and their deployment of digital solutions as well. But going to the next slide, as mentioned before, arguably the most crucial output from the project was the net carbon impact methodology, which was also fundamental to developing the other outputs of the project. The methodology, as mentioned before previously, provides guidelines of how to carry out the net impact calculations for digital solutions that can deliver a reduction in emissions outside of the ICT sector. In addition to this, it also supports 3 key objectives. Firstly, its aim was to provide some more guidance to supporting the assessment of reductions as outlined by the EU Taxonomy's Activity 8.2, which requires companies to show that the ICT solution that they're providing also demonstrates substantial life cycle emission savings compared to the best performing alternative solution. The methodology also aimed to support organizations in the calculation of the EGDC KPIs, and finally, to support the transitioning of the economy towards net zero and reducing total carbon emissions by providing a consistent approach to assessing the net impact of ICT solutions to help facilitate private and public adoption of ICT solutions. So moving on to the next slide, I think this is probably quite an important one. So what does this methodology actually look like, and how do you go about assessing the net impact of a solution? I won't go into all the details today, but at a very basic level, you have a reference scenario, which is the scenario without the digital solution, and you compare this to a scenario with the digital solution. And essentially the difference between the two is what we call the net carbon impact. In reality, there are a few more parts to this equation. So when comparing the reference scenario to the ICT-enabled scenario, you need to first consider what are the additional emissions that the solution is adding to the reference scenario. So this relates to emissions embodied in the different components of the solution, as well as the in-use emissions. You then also need to look at and think about any ways that the solution's impact in making things more efficient could actually lead to unintended increases in emissions, such as potential rebound effects. And then finally, you can also assess how the solution avoids or reduces emissions compared to the reference scenario. So taking these 3 elements into account, you then can establish the emissions of the enabled scenario and compare it to the reference scenario to assess the net carbon impact. So yeah, this methodology, moving to the next slide, outlines this process and provides more detail. I think just 3 key points I want to mention here that this methodology really tries to push. Firstly, it pushes and encourages the use of primary data on the solution's use and calculating of carbon footprints that are part of the solution. It then also tries to ensure that the business as usual or the reference scenario chosen is still representative for the market average. This is really important because it ensures that the solutions chosen are showing an improvement beyond the market average. And then finally, it also requires the review of rebound effects, as well as trying to focus on solutions that are aligned with net zero. So it does exclude certain solutions, such as solutions that exclude activities, that include activities such as the exploration, extraction, mining of fossil fuels, for example. So I realize I'm short of time. So maybe I will stop it there. But that's just to give you a quick overview of one of the key outputs of the EGDC project. Just very quickly, there's also other outputs that I mentioned earlier as well. There's case studies. If we move to the next slide, which again you can sort of have a look at on the website about and find some examples of how we've actually applied this methodology. And then I mentioned, of course, also the deployment guidelines, which look at ways that you can actually maximize the net impact of these solutions when they're being implemented in practice. Good. So I think that's from me. And yeah, as Lewis said as well, happy to take any questions at the end of the session. Thank you very much.
好，
So thank you very much to our speaker from Carbon Trust, Veronica Thiem. Thank you for your sharing. In the beginning, she just talked about that EGDC. Against the backdrop of the EU, it is an initiative with the participation of many European companies, but they also received the support from the European Parliament. So we can see that public and private collaboration and even academic participation so that we can talk about a net carbon impact. Having this methodology is very important because when we make any decision, it is very important to have a science-based foundation so that we can have better policy decision. So now I would like to give the floor to our next speaker, Vice President Bhatt from SEMI, and she will talk about how to advance the low carbon transition for the semiconductor industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Appreciate it. I also really appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak to the audience here, and my special thanks goes out to TCP as well as the Ministry of Environment for this invitation. I want to start with a little story for everyone. So this week I am on a PTO, and we are, and my family is celebrating a milestone birthday for my husband. So we came out to the Himalayas, to the foothill of Himalayas, in a little state called Himachal in India to celebrate. And Himachal actually means the lap of snow, which means the mountains are usually covered with snow. Unfortunately, as I sit here and do this presentation, I don't see any snow in the mountains. So clearly, we all are aware of the problem for global warming and the impact it is having in our daily lives. So this couldn't be a more appropriate time for me to be able to make this presentation to you. So thank you again. And this actually brings us to the solutions that we want to talk about, which is digital technologies bringing solutions to energy efficiency in our chips and our semiconductors. So I am hoping that you are able to see my presentation. I'm going to put it in presentation mode.
Yeah, perfect.
If you can't see my presentation, please
Perfect.
let me know. Thank you so much. Okay, so I want to give a little bit of introduction on SEMI and then move on to talk about the digital technologies. So I head up sustainability at SEMI. And I also want to, for a moment, acknowledge the wonderful presentations that we heard from Lewis from GSI, as well as Veronica from Carbon Trust. There are many synergies in terms of the work we do, and I'm hoping that we can also collaborate in future in terms of what goes into your digital technologies, which is our semiconductors. So a very quick introduction on who is SEMI. SEMI is a trade association, one of the largest in the semiconductor industry. We have about 3,200 member companies, and we have been evolving our portfolio in terms of what is the most recent issues that are important to our industry. And as you can see, in 2024, we have 4 key areas of focus for overall SEMI, which is talent, global advocacy, supply chain, and as well as sustainability. So today I will walk you through what sustainability means to us at SEMI, and how we incorporate our semiconductors into digital solutions for sustainability. So I took the very simple explanation for sustainability as defined by the UN, which is sustainability is the ability to exist and develop without depleting natural resources for the future. And so at SEMI, as we build our chips, our goal is to convene our ecosystem here in order to assimilate the most intractable and common problems, accelerate the discovery of solutions, and deploy the solutions while seeking balance between people, profits, and planet. So this is our goal, and we use our constituent in order to drive this. This here that gives you a quick introduction of our semi-sustainability initiative and the universe that we live in, as well as the pillars of focus within sustainability and the working groups, which are member-led working groups over on the right. Today, I will focus on what the work being done by a few working groups, which are highlighted, which is Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3 working groups, which are focused on addressing emissions. And then I also want to reference our baselining ambition setting and road mapping working group, which is looking at the handprinting impacts of digital technologies. Both Veronica as well as Louis referenced this activity, and we are also actively looking at making sure that the solutions we provide are have a overall positive impact to the society, i.e. generate the right handprints. And so with that, oops, slide's not advancing. So I thought what we would do today is walk you through some clear examples of the handprinting that digital technologies offer today. And as our chips are ubiquitous in pretty much every walk of life, we reference carefully the positive impact they bring to our ecosystem. And so I will be sharing with you a few examples today, which are examples of some of the activities that some of our member companies have put together. And in each of these examples, I will be referencing some specific initiatives that they have deployed that goes into addressing our overall global carbon footprint. And so the first one here is an overall, it's a bird's eye view of some of the AI-enabled initiatives that positively impact SDGs. And all the information that is in here is either available in the public space, so at the bottom you will see some references, or it is something that our members are working on and have given us permission to share at this event. So AI-enabled initiatives could be found in places such as satellite imagery to look at the impact of global impact of global warming and where we need attention and where we need to prioritize our relief efforts. And then Veronica talked about agriculture. So clearly there is a huge opportunity there to optimize resources in terms of improving agriculture, enabling our consumers in their day-to-day lives in making choices that are informed, meaningful, sustainable, and positively impact the planet. And then finally, we are in the age of information and misinformation, and many of us have been subject to this. So also enabling AI to go address that. So this is a very high-level view of some areas where we have handprints generated from digital technologies. And then bringing it closer to data centers, which is the topic of discussion in terms of being energy guzzlers. Our members who are active in this space have have quite a few innovations in flight, and I'm listing here a few of them. The first one is around migrating to the cloud, which is a more efficient means of saving our data. There is multiple initiatives that are in flight in that space, which cover utilization, addressing utilization rates, helping to make consumers make informed choices, as well as understanding the impact of some of that, of some of the data storage related activities that we embark on. Optimizing data processing and storage with AI. Again, I'm not an expert at this, but several initiatives in this space directly taken from a data center operator. Smart cooling being a big part of this activity, as we are all aware of the requirements on cooling and cooling for data processing and storage. As well as several other innovations around balancing workloads, optimizing the flow of data and the energy usage in that process. Again, there are references listed below where you can go in and look at some very specific examples where data centers are innovating for energy efficiency. So again, innovation that never stops in digital technology. There are multiple positive impacts to the work that is being done. Besides enhancing efficiency, the other beneficial impacts are around improving power density as well as total cost of ownership. So clearly, the solutions here have to be benefiting people, profits, and planet as they come through to our community. I'm switching gears and going into my third example, which has been kindly offered to us by onsemi, one of our member companies that are leaders in the space of power semiconductors. And what they're looking at is examples of power semiconductors and optimizing the operation of those power semiconductors, which are essential for powering the AI data centers. So listed in here are the 7 key elements or devices or units, as you will, that go into a power semiconductor. And essentially what happens is as the data centers become more and more power hungry, there is a need to enhance the technology and that accompanies the power semiconductors to keep up with that increasing demand of power requirements from a data center. In the process, one of the things that happens is there are multiple losses as the power is transported from the power source to the data center. And this is an illustration of what actually happens as there is a delivery of power across the grid. There are actually 4 stages of power conversion where the power encounters loss. I'm going to walk through this a bit. Thank you for your patience as I walk through this. But basically what happens is as the power is fed into the grid, it undergoes a high voltage transmission, high voltage to low voltage transmission, where there are multiple losses. This electricity is first stepped down through the transformers. Okay, so the electricity is first stepped down through the transformers, so it can reach an appropriate voltage before it gets to the data center. And then inside the data center, power distribution units further modulate the voltage to suit the specific requirements of the data centers. And that's kind of happening here. And then before it reaches the GPU, which is all the way at the end over here, the electricity is again converted further by the server's power supply unit to ensure compatibility with the GPU's operational voltage. Okay, so in the process, net, there is a loss of about 12% energy. One of the innovations that onsemi has done is they have worked on the power electronics that is distributed throughout this chain to save energy wasted as heat by approximately 1%. Now, 1% might seem like a very small quantity, but 1% actually translates to 10 terawatts hours of energy per year. This is a huge amount. And what they have done is listed a few examples, which you can probably relate to in terms of what 10 terawatts of energy per year translates to. And my favorite one is probably the one in the second one here, which is powering a high-speed bullet train network for over 5 years. That's a massive amount of energy which comes in through this 1%. So every little bit counts, and what seems like a little bit is likely a large amount. And this might be an appropriate time for me to also quote an example that Louis talked about, which is the digital technologies could reduce as much as 20% of global emissions, which again is a very large amount as we can think of. And this here is one small example leading up to this. So my next example is about using digital technologies as we design chips, because that's kind of where you can start the journey on saving on energy through digital technologies, all the way up at design. And so this is an example here from AMD, and without going into too much details, you can see that AMD is clearly into innovation. And as of 2023, they've achieved 13.5% improvement with a goal to drive down 30% improvement. The next slide picks out examples of studies of the AMD chips, and I will leave you to go into the public space and read about these exciting examples. And finally, I want to bring this closer to the fab. As you probably know, in our operations, we have sub-fab. And there is a fantastic startup that is looking at digital technologies to connect the sub-fab and the actual processing of the fab and bring that together. And so let me try and wrap up my presentation and share with you one quick example on how much are we saving within fab processing. Again, an excellent study by Lam Research, which shows that by using digital technologies, you can save as much as 20% of your total emissions just by applying digital technologies to your design of your experiments. And so with that, let me just end by saying that we have many, many, many more examples, as a lot of us are working on energy efficiency and energy solutions. There are solutions around the grid, where we are driving towards net zero, leveraging on digital technologies. A quick view on what SEMI is doing through our climate consortium in the space for focusing on energy. We have ambitious goals, and we are going to be leveraging every bit of digital technology that we can in order to drill down there. A drill down on energy efficiency in production, which I'll let you take a look at a later date. This is a collaboration with IEEE, IRDS, some fabulous work done by other players in our industry. And so with that, I would like to wrap up and leave you with the thought that we have multiple programs in SEMI where we're keen to use our semiconductors to not only be energy efficient, but also to be leaving a large positive impact in the world, in our societies, through our handprint that we generate. And so with that, I want to say thank you for this opportunity to speak to this audience, and I look forward to collaborating with many of you in future.
好，我们
Thank
再
you.
次
Thank
谢
you,
谢
Alan.
Dr. Bass。好，那曾经有媒体笑说了，最懂
Once there's a joke saying that people on the island of Taiwan know the semiconductor the best. Grandmas, grandpas on the streets would know what Moore's law is. This is attributable to our advancement in semiconductor industry. And semiconductor is indeed promoting the advancement of mankind. And definitely, when it comes to climate-related issues, technologies definitely play a critical role. And next, we would like to have Director Chen from Compo Technologies to talk to us about how Compo uses AI to achieve safe energy efficiency. Without further ado, I give you Mr. Chen.
Thank you, Alan. Also, I'd like to thank our speakers online for your sharing. So I will focus more on what Dr. Bott said, because she has touched upon the power saving and efficiency and how that can help with power conservation in the future. So later I'm going to share with you Light-On's products as to how we can better conserve energy and improve energy efficiency. Before I start, please allow me to introduce my company's ESG commitment. So Light-On, as a company, we have a wide range of products. We focus on OEM for electronic products. So we have many products related to power supply. Also, we manufacture mouses and also keyboard LED lights. So we have a wide array of products. And so far, in terms of the sales of our products, we rank number 2 in the world. Regarding the LED products, our light coupling machine, we are the largest provider in the world. So when talking about sustainability, in terms of our journey to sustainability, actually we are one of the early starters in Taiwan. In 2006, we issued the first ever CSR report. Now we call it ESG report. So that was in 2006. As you can see on the slide, 13 years ago, back in 2011, Light-On already started to respond to the call from the international investors. So we already became a member for Dow Jones Sustainability Index. So for 13 consecutive years until last year, we have been a member of the DJSI. Also, we are a member for DJSI Emerging Markets and DJSI World Indices. Regarding MSCI and also FTSE4Good, these are the important indices for international investors when it comes to sustainability rating. Light-On has been trying extremely hard to meet the investor expectations. So by joining these ratings, we would like to show our commitment to our investors. So today we are talking about climate. Back in 2019, we already received the SBTi certification. So from the baseline year was 2014. So our goal is that next year, 2025, we'll be able to cut down 40% of carbon emissions because time is ticking. So now we also try to apply for SBTi's net zero. So hopefully next year we will be able to pass that. So all these are our ESG efforts. We understand that when it comes to carbon emission reduction, the most important thing is to set the goal. I think for all of you here, we understand that cutting down carbon emissions is something very abstract. It's hard to communicate. And even our colleagues may not know how to do it very clearly. So communication may present some challenges. So 2 years ago, we tried to make it more concrete, more easy to be understood. So we set the project 555. So when talking about the SBT goal, every year we want to reduce the GHG by 5%. So for the first 5, we hope that in terms of operation, we want to reduce greenhouse gases by 5% every year. So following this roadmap, So by 2040 to 2040, we'll be able to achieve net zero in terms of our operational GHG. The second 5 is even more important. That is the carbon footprint for our products, because we are a manufacturer. We use a lot of resources. So how can we gradually reduce the carbon emissions for these resources? Definitely, we need to spare more efforts on carbon footprint reduction. So definitely for every product, we want to reduce 5% of the carbon emission. So that's on the product side. The third 5 is a common goal that we have to work together. That is the 2050 net zero goal. So by having this slogan, Project 555, by setting this goal, we want to forge consensus for all of our colleagues. And ever since we launched the Project 555, we also hope that we can invite our supply chain partners to join the pledge as well. And as for our efforts to echo RE100, for our company, Light On, we do OEM for the materials. So when talking about carbon footprint, we need to reduce that. But for ourselves, in the overall manufacturing processes, we consume electricity in 96% of the manufacturing processes. So in terms of the typical OEM, power consumption has been a very serious target for us to cut down carbon emissions. So by joining RE100, we also make a pledge to our commitment in cut down carbon emissions. So we also, now we are already an RE100 member. So by 2040, we hope that we'll be able to achieve 100% of the adoption of renewable energy. So we hope that step by step, year by year, we'll be able to increase the use of green power so that we can reduce the overall carbon emissions. As for our achievement, by 2024, we already reduced 48% of the CO2. So later, I'm going to share with you more details in the Q&A session. And internally, we also implement the carbon fee mechanism so that we can drive everyone in the company to reduce CO2 emission. Also, we have the SBTI, which has been submitted for achieving net zero by 2050. And also last year, we used 28.3% of renewable energy. And next year, it will increase to 35% of renewable energy. So I think this is something I just want to show you. This is our overall carbon dashboard on the left. You can see starting from 2014, this is the baseline year. And last year in 2023, we see a huge drop. Well, because the main source of carbon emission comes from our power consumption. Because of the call from our customers, they want us to use more renewable energy. So as a supplier, definitely we want to accelerate a pace for carbon reduction. So you do see a huge drop last year. So in the future, definitely we will move even faster because some major clients are having this request upon us. So we do feel the urgency and we understand that the requirement has become more and more stringent. So when talking about AI, artificial intelligence, so Dr. Bhatt also mentioned that in terms of the AI computing, in the future, it's going to consume more and more power. So how can we reduce the power consumption from the AI server will definitely be a top priority. So for Light On, we have one business unit responsible for the power supply for the cloud servers. So we also have to think about how can we help our suppliers and partners to reduce the power consumption in the face of the AI era. So in terms of the cloud, AI server, power conservation, there are 3 ways forward. First is we have to think about how we can increase the recycled materials usage. for all of the hardwares. So that's the first aspect. And secondly, we've been talking about how can we increase the power efficiency. And the third one is that you have heard about liquid cooling device and technology. So by having these three elements, we would like to drive the products or the efficiency improvement. We need to optimize the power efficiency and cut down carbon emissions. So due to the time constraint, I will just quickly go through the products we have. So in the very beginning, we have a very small unit to the power shelf to the power rack. So in the future, we are going to have the high output and high voltage solid state system in the future. So now I would like to share with you our carbon reduction efforts. First, we want to have 100% in-house design to reduce the manufacturing process and as well as the carbon reduction from the manufacturing process. Also, we need to have high production automation to increase the efficiency. Third, by having more recycled materials, we want to effectively reduce the carbon footprint from raw materials, at least by 37%. And over here, I just want to share with you our products. By 2027, we hope that we will be able to achieve 98% of power efficiency increase, from 96.5% to 98%. Although it's just an increase of 1.5% of increase, this power can provide the power for the high-speed rail system to run for 5 years. So this is actually a huge leap. So when talking about the liquid cooling, this is a very important system for AI. So for the liquid cooling system, that can be used for it is actually highly customized, and we can provide this kind of solutions to our customers. So finally, we want to introduce the liquid cooling system. I think that is extremely beneficial for the cooling of the servers. By having the liquid cooling system, we can increase the CPU efficiency by 40%, and we can also reduce the energy footprint by 50%. By having this kind of energy improvement device, also by having an effective liquid cooling system, we can ensure that the AI industry will continue to thrive and achieve low carbon development. Thank you very much. Thank you once again to our speaker, Mr. Peter Chen from Light On. Now let's move on to the panel discussion. So I have some questions. So this is for all of the speakers. So based on the order of our presentation, so my first question is for Louis. We understand that for Jesse, for Veronica, for the EGDC, or for organizations like SEMI, all of these organizations, you're facing different stakeholders. So during the process of communication with the stakeholders, do you have any special suggestions or advice? How can you better communicate with the stakeholders, and how can you make better progress? And my question also goes to Peter. For your company, you have a Project 555. So internally, you provide training for your employees to raise awareness. But as a big company, especially a multinational companies, you also need to have some initiative, or you need to talk to the suppliers. How do you talk to the suppliers? So I'll ask Louis to respond first. Thank you.
那我们这个Louis, can you hear me?
Again,
So do you get my question?
no. Well, you spoke in Chinese, so I could not understand what you said.
Okay, you didn't use the translate. Okay, my question is, you are the you are the organization, so you need to involve you have to contact a lot of stakeholders like government and people and a lot of another organization like TCP. So do you have any tips like you have tried to selling something to them? Just give me some idea.
Well, I'm not sure if I got your question, but so at Jesse, we think that to mobilize and engage to achieve, net zero and reducing carbon emissions, this is something that we need to work together with different stakeholders. So there are many things that need to be done. So the studies that we do are important in terms of pointing out the direction and the potential of digital technologies. But more important than that is that we really use the relationships that we have with different organizations, with different stakeholders, and apply the existing or most recent technologies or methodologies that can help us understanding how much those technologies can really contribute to reduce emissions globally. So Veronica and I, we spoke about EGDC. EGDC is a collaboration of different organizations. So in the context of EGDC, we brought together the European Union, companies, associations, technical bodies like the Carbon Trust, all of us together working on a comprehensive methodology to measure the net positive impact of digital technologies. And we need these methodologies to be global and applied globally. So our role in Jesse is really to promote that global dialogue. So when we go into a meeting like COP, where you have many international organizations, you have the governments and so on, those organizations that make the decisions, they understand when we talk as a single voice. Because otherwise, each one of us, I know I was looking to this, to our meeting today. All of us, we mentioned, reductions of emissions. We mentioned the work that we do. But one thing that it's clear is that we are not using the same way of measuring. So we in Jesse, our role is really to bring together those different stakeholders to try to achieve a global methodology that we can all use and that gives credibility to our industry. And that's why it is important the work that we are doing with the Carbon Trust in Europe. We are trying also to apply it in Taiwan. As you know, I had meetings with the Minister of Environment, Ximing Pong, and the reason why I'm going again to Taipei is that we would like really also that Taiwan will be a leading country in applying that. You have lots of digital companies. And, I know that 25% of Taiwan export is coming from the ICT industry. So it's a fundamental country where we need to work together. And I think also TCP, you can play a very important role. You are an organization that wants to promote digital for climate. And so that collective work will be fundamental for us to ensure the credibility of our industry when we meet policymakers and relevant stakeholders.
Okay, thank you, Luis. So the floor is yours, Veronica. So when you're doing the EGDC, you are trying to sell in the EU taxonomy from some methodology. Can you explain more about that?
Yes. So I think work that we did with the EGDC and sort of developing the methodology had, as I mentioned sort of during my presentation as well, a bit of an indirect link to the EU taxonomy. So for those listeners who will be impacted by the EU taxonomy or reporting against the EU taxonomy, will know that there is certain activities that you can report to where you need to evidence that your activities are showing life cycle emission savings against a sort of best performing alternative. And so the work that we did with the methodology was try to create a more guidance and more clarity around what best practice looks like in terms of assessing those emission savings on a life cycle perspective. So really going into the detail in terms of how do you first of all define what a best performing alternative or the reference scenario looks like, and then also providing more guidelines around how to do these calculations. So focusing on what type of data you should be using and best practice scenarios. And that's particularly an issue that, as Lewis will also know, that there's still a lot of work to be done in terms of collecting the right data for both the reference scenario and trying to estimate the emission savings of these solutions. So the methodology looks into that, as well as how to address certain other elements that I also touched on, like rebound effects, for example, as well. So the methodology really aims to provide, as I mentioned in summary, more guidelines around how to assess those life cycle emission savings that are required when you're reporting against the EU taxonomy.
OK， 谢谢 Veronica。我知道那个 guideline 啊，或者指引。
I understand that the guideline for the semiconductor industry is critically important. So now I'd like to invite Dr. Bat. I understand that when you're promoting the low carbon development for the semiconductor industry, you're making a lot of efforts, especially you encourage the use of renewable energy. Could you please share with us your experience? Thank you.
Unmute. We can't hear you.
Translating for me, please. Your question.
Okay. The question is, we know you are trying to encourage the semiconductor to use more renewable energy. Can you share more experience for us? Yes.
Yes, and absolutely I can. So one of the analysis we did as part of our Semiconductor Climate Consortium was to look at our baseline and understand where our highest Pareto of emissions was. And surprisingly, what we understood from there was that about 82% of our industry's total emission can be influenced through clean sources of energy. So obviously that was a space where we wanted to go in and invest our resources in. And so as a result of that finding, what we tried to do is, again, drill down to the next level of data clarity to understand where in our value chain and which regions geographically we have the highest gap between the supply and demand of renewable energy. And so based on all of that analysis, what we discovered is the biggest need and the biggest growth of our industry today, as well as a result, a biggest increase in the supply-demand gap of clean energy is in Asia-Pac. So last year at COP28, we launched a very focused initiative for the semiconductor industry called the Energy Collaborative. This Energy Collaborative has 5 regions of interest in terms of bridging the supply-demand gap for RE, which is basically in Asia-Pac, is Taiwan, Japan, South Korea, Singapore, and Malaysia. This is where our semiconductor industry, as well as our data centers, are growing. And so as part of that activity, we work with a very focused group of our member companies, as well as sponsors. In a total, there are 18 of us where we are doing deep dives in terms of having conversations with the government authorities, with the local developers, as well as financiers, to go in and in a very focused fashion work through bridging the gap in between supply and demand, which in many cases involves creating different mechanisms for procurement of renewable energy, exploring new technologies, exploring grid enhancements. And in my speech, I also talked about how there are many digital technologies that we can apply in terms of creating robust transmission mechanisms as well. So that's a very high level view of what we are doing to focus into energy.
OK， 谢谢 Dr. Beth。那接下来就是
Thank you very much, Dr. Bat. And for Peter, you talked about the 555. How do you apply that on your supply chain?
Well, as mentioned before, our suppliers come in different sizes. So for now, some big suppliers have already taken some concrete efforts to reduce carbon emissions. So we have a communication seminar with the suppliers. Every year we held several rounds of communication sessions so that we can make them understand the importance of setting goals. And for the small and medium-sized suppliers, we just want them to at least follow Light-On's carbon reduction goals, because we believe that this carbon reduction goal is, we're not too far reaching. It's actually doable. As long as they set the goals in terms of their manufacturing processes, at least if they are willing to make some efforts, definitely they'll be able to achieve the goals. So by having the suppliers meeting, we really go all out to make sure that everybody is on board with the carbon reduction goals. So by having the Project 555, all of these suppliers who have participated in our session will remember the goal very easily. So that's the reason why we want to use a very simple slogan to ensure that everybody is on the same page. Thank you. Thank you, Peter. Now let's go back to COP29.
I want to ask all the panelists is regarding the COP29, because we know that the NDC will ambition will more greater. So do you have for everyone? Do you have any suggestion that for industry, the ICT industry, we can overcome the more NDC? Yeah, the first question is for Luis.
Look, we are not on track, by the way. When it comes to the NDCs, we are far from being on track. And so the agreement that was made in Paris in 2015, what we have been seeing is that I've not seen any single country that is really achieving its commitments made in Paris. So we are in deep trouble when it comes to the climate conversations. And I was in Baku last week, and when I came back on Sunday, so at the end of the first week, there was a very high level of disappointment from many different stakeholders, mainly, of course, from the UNFCCC, the United Nations Framework Convention for Climate Change. I had an opportunity to meet with the leadership of the UNFCCC to try to understand how the negotiations are going on. And it became clear to me that last week, at least, there was no progress being made. And this is something that is happening in every single conference. So sometimes I question myself, why are we meeting and taking so many people to a single place 2 weeks, emitting a lot of carbon, and we came back without any tangible result? And I do not think that we can continue like this. Because if we continue like this, the credibility of everyone is at stake. So we need to step up. We need to be serious about what we commit to. And unless we do that, the situation will get worse. It will worsen, and we will continue to assist to stronger impacts, um, uh, like typhoons. You know, last time I was in Taiwan for a conference at the end of October. I was supposed to speak on the 1st of November, and I had to leave the country because the typhoon was coming. So my conference didn't took place. So now I have to go again, and which is okay. But you know, if the problem was not there with the climate situation, I would have done my conference and I would not be emitting again CO2 emissions to go on a second trip to Taiwan. So these things, you know, these seem simple things, but if you put them at scale, they represent a huge impact. So on the NDCs, unfortunately, we are not on track. It's important that governments step up. But for them to step up, they also need to understand what are the solutions that can help them to solve that problem. And recently, Jesse made a report to the German Development Agency, GIZ. They asked us to analyze 10 different countries across the world and using the background of this. And the conclusion was that digital technologies could help every single country to achieve faster their NDCs in different areas, being mobility, agriculture, you know, energy, whatever. So we at Jesse, our role going to COP is really to promote the role of digital technologies for climate change. And therefore, we are now stepping up, meeting not only with the policymakers, but also with the financial institutions. And we have just signed an agreement with the Climate Convention, Climate Adaptation Unit, whereby starting next year, we will start to implement digital technologies to address climate change challenges, mainly connected with the adaptation. So we have companies like NEC, Tata, Google, IBM, Cisco joining us in this journey. And now we are moving into the practical work so we can help countries to address climate change and to achieve their targets when it comes to NDCs.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Luis. So Veronica, so can you give me some such suggestion and how can we facing the challenge about the NDC? Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I agree with everything that's been said, and I think we need to do more. I think there's many things we need to do, but maybe in the interest of time, just two things maybe I want to mention as well, specifically for I think businesses in the sector and in terms of what they need to do. Firstly, I think we need more collaboration. I think this is something that the sector does relatively well compared to some of the other sectors that we work in. We work with at the Carbon Trust. Yeah, I think we need to work more together. Companies can't face and solve a lot of these solutions on their own. So they need to get together to tackle some of these solutions, whether it's working out the right methodologies, working together to get better data, or finding solutions how to reduce their emissions. So that's the first thing. And then I think the second thing that businesses in particular need to do is really to start integrating their sustainability goals across the entire company. So some companies are already doing this, but for many companies, their sustainability still sits within a sort of separate team, and that needs to change. So it really needs to become really integrated into their business, so that so that the right incentives can be created to make change, and also to make sure that yeah, when there are uncertain times as we are in today, and there's lots of external factors, that sustainability doesn't get sort of pushed aside, but that we still stay on track and yeah, continue to work towards achieving those reductions that we need to.
Thank you, Veronica. So, Dr. Bess, your turn, please.
No, and thank you. Appreciate the notes from Lois as well as Veronica, and I 100% agree with everything you've said so far. So I'm going to list a few topics, and some of them are reinforcements of what has been talked about. So the first one, clearly we are out of time, as Lois talked about. So urgency needs to come in. We need to have focused action, and we should be done trying to establish what is the problem, how big is the problem. We really should be focusing on solutioning and moving forward. The second piece that Veronica has brought up is collaboration. Clearly, you can see around the world there are enough initiatives in flight. There are best practices available in different regions. There are with different governments. There are best practices solutions available within the private sector. So there are two levels of collaboration that's important. One is we have to, as we have more and more conversation with the policymaker and the government officials, we have an opportunity to bring in best practices from across the world. And I would look forward to the regional bodies to be open to a lot of the best practices coming in if we want to reach there faster. The other piece of collaboration is within the industry. Veronica referred to it. I think the ICT industry does it pretty well. Within our semiconductor value chain, which is inclusive of our several ICT members, we have our collaboration that brings everyone together. And what this helps in doing is not only to bring best practices across the sector, but also to present ourselves with one voice when we go into our advocacy discussion with the government. So collaboration at various different levels within the private sector, between the private sector, as well as government, and then also being able to bring best practices to the government. And the third topic, which I think is unique of our industry, where we need to do more, is to be able to bring these solutions. I loved what Louis said in terms of what they did at COP, which is to bring in the solutions. So other than those 2 weeks of COP, we must take advantage of every opportunity for an interlock to share those solutions we have, create intentional programs which we take away, where we go away and implement those solutions that are being offered within our ecosystem, which includes companies like AWS, Google, Microsoft, Apple, and several other solution providers that have digital solutions. We need to make sure that we are bringing them to the table, and then there is somebody to receive them at the other end, so that we can work on lifting the greater good. So those would be the 3 areas where I would put focus on: urgency, collaboration at every level, and then a willingness to include new technologies, digital solutions ASAP.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Bess. Peter, 面对这个更严峻的挑战。
For Peter, in light of the challenges, how do we address those as a company?
企业的角
From the company's perspective, definitely we are pleased to see that the government has enacted a carbon reduction goal. It shows that, like in Taiwan, definitely if we are able to achieve the carbon reduction goals, that means there will be more sources of renewable energy for companies to use. When talking about renewable energy, that is very important for the industries. For a PC board, from the upstream, if we all become members of RE100, from not being a member of RE100 to the RE100, we can reduce 60 to 70% of carbon footprint. So that will be a very effective way to reduce carbon emissions. So I think that definitely we are feeling the pressure coming from the government. We don't need to have too much so-called carbon anxiety. As long as we can follow some important principle. First, we have the TCFD mechanism. So we can follow the TCFD mechanism. We need to have a verification, to have an inventory of the carbon footprint. What will be the challenges and opportunities? So as a company, we make the products related to our power sources. So for the green avenue, we need to deploy some micro power grids. We need to have the smart power devices. This will be a concrete example for us to turn the climate risk into opportunities. So that's my response. Thank you. So thank you, Peter, talking about how to turn the crisis into opportunities. So overall, based on the comments from our panelists, we understand that collaboration is of paramount importance, and it's important to communicate with all of the stakeholders.
This conversation today. Thank you, Luis. Thank you, Mr. Veronica, and Dr. Beth, and Dr. Peter.
Thank you.
Thank you. 谢谢大家，谢谢。
Thank you all. Thank you.
You as well.